Okay. Well, good morning, afternoon, good evening, everyone from wherever you're joining us. I am Jason Wells from QA Cafe, and today we're going to talk about Wi-Fi in the smart home, particularly devices that are connecting over Wi-Fi and how you can better test them and some of the problems that we've seen using our new IoT test product, Passport. With me is Tim Winters, who I'll introduce you to. Tim is our CTO. He comes to us with a very long, over 2 decades of networking experience at this point.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, it's been a while, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of it coming from the University of New Hampshire Interoperability Lab and his time there, particularly around the world of IPv6, which is becoming increasingly important in IoT, especially. We just put out an article today, actually, in Tech Target, talking a little bit about that. But today we're going to talk about Wi-Fi, and here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk a little bit about the wireless situation in the smart home. There's a lot of different protocols that are out there. There's a lot of different deployment scenarios that are out there, and then talk about the problems. The reasons why Wi-Fi is probably the most ubiquitous, or that you're going to run into it eventually with your smart home products, and then the need to test it. And then we'll talk about the pain points behind testing those things and some of the difficulties that we've seen people encounter. And then Tim will show you a little bit of our Passport test solution with some of the new test cases we've just put in for Wi-Fi, and how that all works. And we'll show you how to save time when testing those smart home and IoT products that are connecting over Wi-Fi. And then we'll talk about some of the resources that we have at our disposal at QA Cafe. So take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Jason. So, one thing we want to talk about is a smart home. Wireless is a really important technology that's part of wireless, right? Every house, you don't want to wire your house. So Wi-Fi, wireless are really important technologies to work. But one of the things that comes up here is that there's lots of different wireless technologies, right? There's Z-Wave, there's Zigbee, there's Wi-Fi, there's Bluetooth, there's all these different ones in the house. One thing that we've been seeing, and I think the industry has been seeing, is a lot of movement of moving that testing and moving the development to an all IP solutions. So in the home, that putting IP addresses on everything makes it so that a Zigbee thing can talk to a Wi-Fi thing that can talk to a Z-Wave thing. All of those things become important. So we've been, wireless testing is still very important, and a lot of that ends up over the wireless, your 802.11 network. So let's talk a little bit about that. There's lots of, the Wi-Fi universe is vast. It has lots of security modes. There's lots of bands that can be used and changing all the time, right? There's been, the new 6E stuff is in a brand new band. There's lots of channels to configure. Additionally, there's a lot of advanced features that you want to use or can use. And you want to make sure that all of those work. And then obviously, if you're building a gateway or you're building an IoT device, you don't know what you're going to encounter in the field. There are still legacy devices. There's all these new things, but there's also old things lurking out there that haven't been updated. I often think of my dad, who never changes his wireless router in his house. So those are the types of things that people building IoT devices have to think about. How do they encounter all of these different scenarios? So what should you test in your Wi-Fi home products? There's different configurations, there's different security modes. You should verify things like association, disassociation. These are, constant tests that users have to run. They have to verify that these work. I talked a little bit about the legacies, making sure the old stuff works. It's just as important as the new stuff. And an important aspect of testing is stability over time, just making sure that your IoT device stays up and can work over a period of time, not just an initial reboot. Why is this so hard? Well, a lot of this, has to do with manual configuration of routers. So if you are a IoT device and you're trying to connect to different home gateways, you have to set them up manually. And often cases, this is not your Wi-Fi router, and so you don't have all the automation keywords, and you're clicking through the UI to set the security modes, whether it's going in 2, 4, or 5 gigahertz, setting the speed from A, B, G, AC, all of those, the security settings going through all of the different WPA modes, country codes, making sure your device supports a vast amount of passwords. All of those configurations are, be done manually. That's a lot. I listed a lot of things there. And so that's really tough. Another aspect of this is repeatability of test results. So making sure that when you do configure it on a real network, that you can repeat it over and over again. Often, you're tweaking many things on these routers, and you might, make multiple changes, which can affect your test result. And then another thing is, if you grabbing brand new stuff off the shelf, it might not support some of the legacy configuration for whatever reason, but you might have a user out there that you want to verify that the thing that you're putting into a home will be able to test it. And so these are all of the problems that come up if you're trying to build an end device in a home. So what we've done is we have a tool we call Passport here at QA Cafe, and its job is to try to cover as many of those areas as we can, because this is what we've been hearing from customers building IoT devices. So, Passport specifically designed to test end devices in the home. It emulates the environment, so we can set up all of those configurations in an easy automated way, so it's repeatable. Every result has a pass fail, so you can easily tell, oh, this didn't work or it did work. It validates connectivity and interoperability, increasing your confidence. It makes you feel better. What we're really doing here is we have a home gateway. Passport is emulating a home gateway configurations for all of those wireless settings, and you can run them over and over again, and it will run you through these different scenarios of 2.4, associate, disassociate, turn it off and on, flapping scenarios. All of those are what Passport runs through. Passport, obviously, today we're focused on wireless. It covers other protocols. Jason mentioned earlier, I'm definitely a V6 advocate, love talking about V6. So we covered all of that. There's also other important things, DHCP, making sure that things in the home are getting addresses, your IoT device can get them. DNS is obviously important to a network configuration. So we have a lot of test cases for failover DNS, making sure that a device, if it loses connection to a DNS server, that it rolls over to another one. That's obviously to prevent if something were to happen where a DNS server were to go down due to a DOS or accidental thing in a cloud, that it will roll over to the other one. So we have a lot of test cases verifying those over V4 and V6. Today, I'm going to focus on the Wi-Fi. We also have a whole section of stability test cases to kind of cover if the device can stay up for periods of time and stay associated on the wireless side. As I mentioned, we simulate a gateway. We try to emulate all these different scenarios that service providers and home users might be using gateways for. And then we also have the web viewable captures. So we use our Cloud Shark tool to allow users to easily see a wireless capture if they need to. This is just a quick reminder for the topology of Passport. So what we have here is Passport sits in the middle of a network. It has a LAN connection that is very typical to what a home user might have. This allows them to test different smart devices connected directly to it. The users can access it through the GUI, and then it connect up into cloud services. A lot of the IoT devices we've tested or work with almost have a requirement that they have to connect to a cloud service. So Passport is always allowing that. It's acting as a gateway. It'll connect to the network and then up to the cloud services. Additionally, this has come up in a couple of cases where you can connect a smart hub right off of Passport, either wired or wireless, and then connect the smart hub, whatever it is you're testing, whether it's a Zigbee light bulb, light switch, whatever it might be, directly to the hub, and then it's getting an address if it's IP enabled from Passport at that case. And Passport can still run almost all of the test cases. Obviously, if you're trying to run the wireless ones, disassociate, it's going to disassociate the hub, not the individual device, but you can still get a lot of benefits from running all of that testing that way. So now I thought I would give a live demo.
And while you're setting that up, I just want to say, if people do have questions, definitely type them in the Q&A box that Zoom has. It makes us really easy for us to see them and sort through them and answer them for you. And feel free to ask them at any time, and we'll get to them either during or at the end, depending on the context.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to keep my eyes on the box, Jason, or feel free to interrupt, Jason, if you see a good question fly by. So today we're just going to walk through how Passport does some of these wireless testing, how you use it, how you can use it to test your devices. So right now I have a wired Raspberry Pi connected to it. I also have a camera here on this version of Passport. So it auto detects all of the devices that you're going to test. So you can just easily look into connect a device. It shows up here. As you can see, this device has a v4 address. It actually has a v6 address as well. All of that shows up fine. We have the results. This is where all the individual results that will show up for the testing. I've been testing these devices pretty regularly for a variety of things at the moment. We also have all of our individual test cases, which I'm going to talk about more in a second here. So let's go ahead and click on this just to show some test cases. So for the wireless testing, we have all these different scenarios. So, the way we decided to break this up, and this is just kind of easier for devices, is we broke them into the security modes, as interesting as that's going to sound. So, we run through no security on a network. We, begrudgingly put the WEP. We heard from a lot of IoT developers who said, yeah, there are people out there with WEP connections still, and we want to make sure our devices connect. So we threw in a couple of those. And then we have all the WPA flavors that you can connect your device to ensure that it connects. Inside of here, this is kind of a rinse and repeat situation. We go through and check all of the different, in this case, you can see we do B only on the LAN connection. We do N only with 2, 4, and 5. We do a lot of the combo ones as well. And really what we're doing here is you can, click on all of these test cases. I'm not going to do it right now because this webinar would go for a long time. As you can see, it would be 39 minutes. You click on the individual test cases and it'll go off and run it. So I'm just going to click on 2 here right now. And what this will do is the device is already connected over that. It kicks it off. It's trying to connect right now on a B-only access port using the WTA personal, right? So the thing here is you connect the device once, you click off and you run all these test cases and it will go through and test all of the wireless tests as it's going and doing that. On the results side, you can see the results show up here for individual test cases. This one's is running right now. I'll show up here in a second. There's a clear pass fail for each test case, and then it'll clearly say what's going on. In this case, right, this device was unable to connect to the AP after a reconnect event for this speed. So this one, it's clearly showing that at, when it tries to connect at B, G, or N at the 5 gigahertz, it's unable to make that connection, right? And so this is the kind of stuff we want to find is that there's all kinds of variations and you want to tweak all of these various things. And this is exactly what Passport's trying to do is log into a device and allow you to quickly see that, hey, we have an issue with one of this connection. Something's going on in the 5 gigahertz band. Something's going on at this channel. So we step through all of those different configurations as part of it. As you can see over here, there's a little thing. I'm not doing any configuration in this case. I've already set the device up and it's just sitting there, but we do have a little window here to tell you what it's trying to do in the background. Hey, you need to configure your device to join this SSID over this security, and here's the passphrase you need to put into it. So all of that's going on in the background while it's running. The test scenarios are all right here that walk you through. So I showed some of them. You can see each individual one very nicely here in our UI. As always, for the results, I didn't show this. So let me go. If you go to an individual, so one of those test cases I was running past, you can just click right here. When we upload this directly to our CloudShark instance, it's sitting up. This is my CloudShark personal account. I have it connected to, and then instantly you get to see all of the network traffic for the test case. What came up, you don't have to go download a file. And I often cringe when I go to my download folder that's full of random PCAPs named PCAP1, and then in parentheses, some crazy number because I've downloaded so many PCAPs. In this case, it's a lot easier. It just automatically keeps track of all of that stuff. So that's been a nice feature of it. So it's running more test cases. Also for packet capture, if you're running testing on the wireless network and your device is, not doing something you want it to do, you can just do a generic capture. It'll start the capture and then you can send it up to CloudShark to see what's going on with the wireless interfaces. And then on the other side, I think you can see some of this, some of the interfaces, this kind of stuff is all set over here to set up the individual passwords and those kind of things. Let's see. I think we have a couple of questions that have come in. So I think that's all I had for the demo. Just again, the real thing here is it's still running the testing in the background while I've been talking. All this is just automated. I'm not touching the IoT device. It's just off and running. So that's really the area we're trying to, let's see.
Yeah,
Jason, let's see.
Bring up that
questions.
That last slide we had there. I just wanted to point people at some of our resources on the topic.
Oh, sure.
If you are, if you're looking at, so we launched Passport several months ago, and we've had a really good response so far. Obviously, it's a different space from CD router, not entirely. There are users who, users of CD router who are also deploying IoT devices that definitely want to benefit from this kind of testing. And I apologize, Tim, that you might have to bounce back and forth to the demo again as we go through these questions.
Fine, I should have thought of that. Yeah, no, absolutely. We have all this stuff available. We do also, we have the ability to allow people to remotely access Passport if they want to try it out for a little bit against devices we have here in the lab, just to get a feel for what it's doing or how it goes and runs. That's something that's available as well. So feel free to reach out for any of that stuff.
And we'll definitely make this and the slides available offline. So I just wanted I had a question. Just so you were talking about the association and deassociation flipping in the beginning. Is that did you show any of that in the demo? Is there? I feel like what we're running into. So Passport. The other thing about Passport, because we didn't really show the full architecture diagram, but about the power cycling that it does.
Oh, yeah. So we should talk about that. It's a really good point and a good question. So for what we do for IoT devices is Passport is a gateway that's connected to a power booter over USB. And what happens there is it connects and says, oh, power the device on and off. So when I clicked on those two test cases, it was bringing the camera up and off. For the disassociation test, we turn it on, let it connect. And then for the failure that it had, we brought down the wireless network and bring it back up. And it wasn't able to reassociate after 60 seconds, which is probably not a great situation. So right. These are the kind of tests that we want to run. Is we want to run you through all of those. A lot of our test cases are, they're quick connectivity tests, but they matter. They want to make sure that the device connects. We also have a whole series of stability test cases. And the real goal for those is for making sure your device is able to stay connected over a long period of time, right? So we do long pings, we do long associations. In this case, obviously, we're not talking about a device that would go to sleep, right? That's the one catch there is we've had a couple of people use it and then immediately be like, why is my device failing? Well, your device is going to sleep, right? So we have this little, you need to kind of not think, but you need to be careful about how you run some of those stability tests because, if it's a battery device, you're going to burn the battery out real quick if it's on all the time. But also if you want a device that is wired and you want it to be connected all the time for whatever it might be for, you want to make sure that your device isn't going in and out of connections because that's very frustrating to the users. So we have a couple like week-long test cases to make sure the device keeps its address and stays on, which is interesting.
All right.
We got a question here. Yeah, we got one about bandwidth steering. We don't currently have bandwidth steering in there. We could put it in. I think there's some interesting use cases there on the IoT side. I think it's slightly, we haven't seen a ton of interest. I'm curious, this is obviously something we would love to talk more about is what kind of band steering you're looking for in an IoT device. I'm typically aware of it. We obviously have some band steering stuff on the CD router side for verifying a gateway. On the IoT side, I think it's an interesting area. We don't currently have any test cases. We've created a lot of these test cases for connecting, making sure other parts are verified. I think band steering will be something we'll be looking to add in the future, just based on how people want to go about verifying their IoT devices is connecting to the right channel. We have some, we obviously have some test cases that make sure that they can connect to the different channels and country codes, right? We scroll through all of those, can you connect to these channels and these country codes and make sure that it comes up, but not necessarily band steering directly. That's how I will say that.
All right. Actually, Tim, you know what I'll do? I'm going to steal your control for a minute because we have a slide deck that has the physical setup in, just so you can kind of see what we were talking about when Tim was talking about how it works.
Yep. So this is all the pictures, right? Where we have the Wi-Fi antennas and we have all these Ethernet ports. And then, we have a distributed power unit that can connect and bring the device up and down. And then for the WAN, it just needs a connection to the internet, right? It can be on your physical enterprise network. It doesn't need to be fully exposed, but you just connect it up. And then as long as it can get out to the cloud services, Passport will act like a regular router in that case.
So you talked obviously we're talking about IPv6 a lot. Do you want to talk about a little bit about the test cases that we added for that? One of the things that I've come to appreciate recently is the speed at which we're adding new test cases to Passport. It's only been a couple of months, and it keeps
we added on the latest release. It's not out yet, but it's coming out. It's going to have a whole slew of DNS v6 test cases we've added now. For the v6 stuff, we have a lot of test cases. In particular, we're covering a lot of the connections, how it might go, getting addresses, making sure the device gets multiple addresses. There's a lot with IPv6, and weirdly enough, the DNS actually added a lot because there's lots of ways to learn DNS and v6. There's Slack, there's DHCP, there's stateless info. There's lots of ways we've given you to learn DNS servers. And so we go through and verify that all of those work if a device supports them. So that's been interesting. We've also often found that devices don't support them all the same, which is unfortunate. This is kind of the great interop discussion. And that's what we're trying to help individuals figure out. Like, hey, there's v6 deployments, they exist in the world. I often think users don't know that they have v6 issues because it works fine in a dual stack environment, and then they get deployed in a v6 only environment for whatever reason, and then problems arise. And so we make sure that when we're testing v6, we're testing v6 only, and that you can't get away with sending your stuff over v4.
Right. It's interesting because it's kind of the same situation of running into legacy Wi-Fi, right?
Yes. Yes, it's very similar. And like I mentioned earlier, I was surprised when talking to people how many people wanted to make sure that their B connections worked. I was sort of surprised, but then I immediately went home and checked my father's, one of his wireless gateways was running B. And I told him he has to replace that. Like there are people in the world who, once it works, they're not touching it. And so that I think that there's, I understood the value of that after talking to some IoT customers. And so it's interesting. We have to put all that stuff in because there are users out there. It's very diverse. Sometimes a router goes out there and doesn't get changed. I think service providers do a great job with their provided ones, but there's a lot of people who have bought, happily went to their local store, bought a router and put it in and don't touch it. And so there's some downside to that on the IoT side, is you have to deal with a very diverse area or world for sure.
All right. Well, thanks, Tim. I think that was nice and digestible. Like I said, we're going to make the video of this available, and we'll send that out to everybody who was here. And if you do have any interest in trying Passport, we actually have a great setup for doing demos with that. That is set up here where we don't even have to send you anything. You can just kind of try it out for yourself. And so feel free to reach out to us at sales@qacafe.com. And then we've been putting up a lot of articles about smart home and IoT testing since the launch of Passport. You can find that plus all of our old webinars on our website, on the resources page of our website. And by all means, please follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, where you will find more access to information like this and our future webinars. We'll try to do them as we add more interesting test cases to Passport. We'll talk about those specific scenarios.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, this was fun. We'll hopefully be seeing you guys with lots of new stuff to talk about for Passport.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your days, and we will talk to you soon.